welcome to the Women Entrepreneurs Series. I'm your host, Kristen Price, and I'm so excited to have today Miss Simma Lieberman. So let's welcome her, guys. Yes.
Hey.
Simma, welcome to the Women Entrepreneurs Series. You know, this is the beginning of something just great, and I'm excited that you could be a part of this series of awesome speakers and influencers. And you have been an influencer to the world. As a matter of fact, your name, and you call yourself the inclusionist. And so I guess I want to start my first question to you is, what does inclusionist mean? And then how did you come up with the name that you are the inclusionist?
That's a really good question. Well, for inclusion, it means that when people feel included, it means everybody feels welcome, everybody feels like they belong, and everybody is comfortable doing their best work. Because when people don't feel included, then people don't feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable taking risks. You know, people talk about like diversity and inclusion, but if you could have a lot of diversity, you could have a lot of representation, but if you don't create an environment where everybody feels comfortable talking to each other, sharing, where everybody knows that their best work is being recognized, then it's just a bunch of different kinds of people who end up like working in isolation. And you could have inclusion where everybody feels great, oh, I love being there, but if everybody looks the same, then it's not diversity, and it's just like a party. So you need diversity and inclusion both. And the way that I came up with the inclusionist was my mentor. I was at a meeting with my mentor. This is a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to come up with my brand. And he said, and they were going back and forth, this, that, you know how they brainstorm. And he said, the inclusionist. And at first I thought, well, that's kind of bold, you know, taking that title. And then I said, no, because that's exactly what I do, because I've always been inclusive in my whole life. That's just that's how I live my life. And it just caught on, and people love it. And people remember it too.
Well, absolutely. If you're going in a corporation, you say, I'm the inclusionist, then we know you talk about diversity, you talking about putting people together and bringing the differences, you know, as a group together. So I just wondered, I was like, inclusionist, wow, that is bold, and that's awesome. So what in your heart drew you to wanting to be inclusive to people? Like, why?
That's a really good question too. You're asking really good questions to me. You know, when I was growing up, I think it started like actually when I was growing up, because my family was Jewish, and it was not that long after the Holocaust. I mean, people's parents had been in the Holocaust. They had numbers on their arms from being in the concentration camp. And we felt at the time, we really felt very alienated and from everybody else. And one day we were sitting in synagogue praying, and these kids attacked us. And I was like 8, and I just remember being really scared, but thinking, why are they attacking us? How could they hate us? They don't know us. How could you hate people that you don't know? And then what it did was it made me want to I said, I'm going to get to know people who are different than me, and I'm going to have them get to know me. Right. So that we won't hate each other. And I spent a lot of time in my life not feeling included like a lot of other people. And I grew up around a lot of people, like a lot of people of color who also didn't feel included. And that was my mission. I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make people feel included, whatever it is. I am going to help build community, because community is really important to me in every aspect of my life. And when I started working in corporations, that's what it was about. Like, how do I help make people feel included? And how do I help other people make people feel included? Because I know what it's like to not feel included. And I know friends who are like never been included, especially like, you know, with in politics today. So that's really my mission: building community, building diverse, inclusive communities is what I live for.
That's awesome. I'm thinking about it, and you say companies building inclusion. So the summit is about joyfully leading, happily leading, and connecting in confidence, connection, and all those things. And so I guess as a leader, and they're at a place where they're not happy because the company is not looking, and I wouldn't say even inclusive, but just not being connected. Like, how do you take a place that's chaotic and a company that's just crazily, like, everybody's not, I guess, in line? How do you take that and create alignment, if that makes sense?
Well, you have to look at the leadership. Who is leading the company? What's their vision? Do they understand that when you have a company where people are not really talking to each other, or people are not comfortable contributing, where people are not comfortable sharing, where people get overlooked, or people share an idea, somebody takes that idea, then you have a dysfunctional company. And there are leaders that don't really care. You know, as long as they're doing what they think they should do, they don't care. But if you want a company to be successful, then you need to look at, what can I do to create an environment where everyone can really do their best work, where people are actually talking to each other, engaging with each other. Because one of the problems in so many organizations is that people, for the most part, engage with people who look like them, because that's what they know. Right. And that's what they're most comfortable. If you have a company, where, say, leadership is mostly white, then that's who, by default, that's who gets the good positions, because that's who's hanging out. White people hanging out with white people, and other people get left out. Other people do not get included. And so oftentimes companies aren't even aware of what they're doing because it's so natural to them. Right. So it's really important to be able to have that consciousness, be aware and say, what can I do? And how do you facilitate a process where people actually get to talk to each other? Because if not, what ends up happening is that you don't see the hidden genius. I mean, the genius is hidden in your organization. You don't see the genius. And so you underutilize people. Absolutely. And then geniuses leave. Yeah. And they go somewhere else. They start their own, either they start their own business, you know, either they go work for the competition, or they become in competition. Right. Wow. Or they stay and do nothing.
That's huge. That is huge, because people don't realize, you know, and I say that the treasure that they have, which Simma means treasure too, I just found out, but the treasure in their companies, and I say entrepreneurs that are building their businesses, like, our treasure is our people. That's you know, right. We think we're hitting a profit line and we want to create this revenue and we want to reach these goals, but it's like, who's putting action to it? And it's like you said, if they don't feel like, okay, I'm worthy of anything, it's like, you know, I'm not feeling connected. I don't want to share my best work. You know, I don't want to give of myself. I'll work, but I'll just work in borderline, just give, you know, basically what I need to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you end up just doing your job. You know, yeah. You're just there doing your job. And you know, and that's really hard to deal with. You just go, I'm just doing my job. So you're not really happy. Yeah. And you don't spread if you're not getting the love inside the organization, you're not spreading the love outside the organization. Right, right. That's amazing. And I think about that, but it's true. And a lot of times we only think about it. I'm a CEO. So of course, when you're running a business, you have to think about your focus is always, you know, okay, you got to create this, you got to create that to reach a line. But absolutely, the people are the most powerful thing you can have. So I think about this now, even that being inclusionist. So how can a company and people in a company say, me and you in the same company, we don't have the same belief. You know, you believe one thing, I believe something else. You know, how can a person with a mindset of certain place still be able to include each other? Now, I know the answer, but I want you to tell me the answer. But we're different mindsets. We may not agree on the same issues, but how can we still work together to build something for our company or be in alignment, yet we may not always agree in the same personal, you know, we personally don't agree with each other. So that makes sense. Yeah, well, it depends on what it is, because oftentimes the problem is that people don't know each other. Okay. So they only focus, if you don't know somebody, then you just only focus on what's different. Mm-hmm. I mean, differences are cool because you want to get to know people, you want to get to find out about differences. But if you don't connect with people, then you use that as a way of not relating to them, of not talking to them. But once you create an environment where people actually have meaningful conversations, then you could find things that you have in common with people. And that's what allows you to work together. And that's what allows you to find out about the way each, about differences. Like, for instance, I had a client who was Christian and a lesbian, and she was white, and she was working with this guy, and he was white, he was Christian, but he was very homophobic. So he wouldn't talk to her. Now, these people were in the security business, like national security. So
Wow.
you would hope that those people would talk to each other, but he would not talk to her, and it was very difficult. And then one day he was passing by her office, and he saw he saw a cooking magazine that she subscribed to, and he couldn't help himself. He said, "Oh, you subscribe to that magazine?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, so do I." And that was like a point of connection for them.
Right.
And then he found out that she was Christian, because in his mind, it was like, oh, if you're gay, you can't be a Christian. So that was like new to him, so they would have like those kind of conversations. And then one day he started asking her about her partner. So it was, but had they not gotten to know each other, had they not had that initial conversation, they would have stayed not talking to each other. And, people working in national security, I would assume we would like them to talk to each other.
Absolutely.
Don't put us in danger, please.
Protect me, please. Talk to
Yeah.
somebody. Absolutely. That's amazing. And it's true. And it makes sense to open your mouth and talk. So don't be afraid. I think the resistance is the fear,
Yeah.
you're fearing what you don't know. And if you break it down, even in that instance, the whole idea is love. I think you even talk about that in your company. The whole idea of connecting is love. Like, regardless if I agree with you or not, I still love you. You know what I'm saying? And that should be with everybody. But
Yeah.
everybody may not, I guess, understand that. But if you want to see the goal, the alignment, then there has to be something in place where you can align with, which is the love, So
Yeah. I
that's
mean, and there's different levels too. I mean, it's one thing if you're working with somebody and they're like a white supremacist and they don't want you in the company, then you're not going to find a whole lot in common with that person.
right.
But if you have somebody that's just ignorant and they don't really know, and having that conversation could really change how people see things.
Yeah.
Because we have biases. People have biases. They just look at somebody and they assume that a person's going to think a certain way. But when you get to know people, and what's so amazing to me is how just the act of getting to know somebody and see the humanity in that person can help. I'm not everybody, of course, but can help a lot of people let go of their biases, let go of their fear of differences, let go of even like hatred, if they get to know each other. But you got to be willing to get to know each other. But yeah, so that's what I like to do, because everybody's not the same and everybody doesn't agree. But there's a whole lot of things that we can find that we do agree on. And then from there, we could have real conversations.
So that's my next question. You talked about how the security man saw the magazine and then he couldn't help but connect with her that way. How does a company create that conversation? How do they open up dialogue for people that don't communicate?
Well, they bring somebody like me in help with the facilitation, because
Okay.
it's much easier if you facilitate the conversation, and instead of going, "Hey, everybody, we're going to talk now," but you have different topics. I mean, I remember this is a long time ago. I don't know, like 25 years ago or even more. There was a company, it was a government agency, and they wanted us to help facilitate a discussion for their diversity council. So diversity council had like different employee resource groups, people who represented different groups, and they had like an LGBT group. Well, there was a group of people who were very, I guess they were like kind of conservative, and they were very upset about the LGBT group. So they formed their own group, the Family Values something or other, to combat and try to get the LGBT group kicked out. Well, the person who was co-facilitating with me was a good friend who was also a colleague, and he came from an evangelical Christian background. And so we were able to, I think it's because of how he and I worked, and he's one of my really good friends. We were able to bring these people together. It was so amazing. And that the Family Values people went out to lunch with the LGBT group.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And the Family Values people said, we are sorry, we didn't know that you were like real, you kind of didn't know you were real people, whatever, I mean, this is a long time ago. And, the LGBT people had been freaked out. And they said, we're not going to try to stop you. We're not going to, the Family Values people said, we're not going to try to stop you. And people were open to having conversations.
That's
and
good.
That was, to me, that was one of the most amazing, it was a long time ago, but you know what? The fact that they were able to give up their biases, because everybody had biases. It wasn't just one group. They all had biases that stopped them from seeing each other as real human beings.
Right.
We felt so good about ourselves after that.
That is awesome. And not just, I guess, and it goes back to the foundation of love, but in creating that, like you were saying, and I've looked at some of your information background and everything, but one speech I heard you saying just we all are different, like in different ways.
Yeah.
And it's just the point of connecting all these people. So
yeah, and it's about love. And somebody might make a mistake sometime. They might use a word, I'm not talking about a real offensive word, but they might use a word that somebody else, oh no, so what are you going to do? Do you educate them and say, here's another way of looking at it? Or do you say, get out, get out, get out? But if you come from a position of love, you want to spread the love. You want to spread the inclusion. You want to spread the love. You want to stop hate. You want to stop fear of differences. And that's what a lot of it is when people are afraid. When people are afraid. So we have to get people to not be so afraid.
Yeah, and I think too, when you think about this, because you can love somebody and still not agree with them. You don't have to still agree with what they are doing. Like if and I just say LGBT and Christians or whatever, or however it is, but it's the point though that you still communicate, because we're all people. So I guess that's huge. And I guess in being confident. So as a confident leader, how does that leader come in and they're feeling like everybody is okay, we're talking, how can they go forth after they've connected the people to communicate? What's the next step after that?
Well, you have to talk together. And then what you do is, this is what I like to do, is you create some problem-solving groups. And in the problem-solving group or a creativity group, you have people from different backgrounds, different belief systems, different levels in the organization, because that's really important, that you have the different levels, and you have, like, say, marketing with research, so you have different functions, and you bring people together, because now that they've gotten to know each other, then they could create a process where you could say, well, here's a problem, we want you to solve this problem, or we want to find a new product or a new service. And when you have people are talking to each other, you never know what they're going to come up with. It's much more, they're more likely to come up with something that's going to be really cutting edge, because they've done studies that said that diverse teams are better at problem solving and are more creative. That's true, but there's a but. And the but is that happens when people know each other. Okay. Because when you have people who don't know each other and they don't know anything about each other at all, and you say, okay, solve this problem. Well, maybe they will, but it could take a lot longer, because they're still operating from biases of who they think the other people are. But once they do, where the people actually start talking to each other, then it's easier for them, because they're more willing to take risks and throw out ideas and listen to what each other has to say.
It makes sense. Now, I have to ask you this, because you said you were 8 years old. No, you were a baby or younger, And you were on the March on Washington with Martin Luther King?
Yeah, I wasn't, I was about 12, yeah.
You were
I went on
12,
there,
you were older.
yeah.
So do you remember it?
Well, I do remember it. There's things I don't remember, but here's what I remember the most. I remember that we were on a bus and we had white people and black people on the bus. And I remember, I just remember this like it was yesterday. And the buses were coming in to Washington to what the monument, whatever the national monument, whatever it was. And all I remember is looking up, and it was almost like in slow motion, and seeing people just waving to us as we came in. And I'd never seen so many different kinds of people in my life. I mean, there was every color, every age, I don't know, it was,
Wow.
people were in sandals, people were dressed up. I remember people wearing sandals. I don't know why I remember that, but I remember it was the first time I remember getting like chills just seeing that. And everybody was together for a purpose. And I mean, I remember the speeches, but not really well. I mean, I could say that I did, but I'm not quite sure if I don't know if I really did, or if I like to think that I did. But yeah, I mean, I'll never forget that. And that really had a big impact. And I didn't even know till much later what the impact that the March on Washington had on the country, because I was really young. And on the way back, as we were leaving, it was white and black people, and we went to a diner in Maryland to eat, and they wouldn't serve the black people. And we had like an emergency sit-in. And that was scary because I'm a kid, but at the same time, it was exciting, because I wasn't thinking, oh, something could happen to us. And we ended up getting served.
Wow, everybody.
Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, your parents, so that means your parents were involved in the
No, my
march.
parents weren't involved.
So who did you go with?
I went with my friend. I had a friend in my building, and her parents had been freedom riders. And
wow,
they were really active. In fact, when I remember this, I was also like 8 or 9. I was with my friend and her mother, and we were walking down the street. And I don't know if you remember Woolworths, but Woolworths,
the store, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the South, it was very segregated.
Oh yeah.
The black people couldn't sit at the lunch counters. And I remember walking up the street, and I see people like with these signs, and I'd never seen the picket things or anything before. And I just remember what they were saying. They were saying, 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't go in here anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8. Southern Woolworths segregate. And I said, well, what does that mean? And my friend's mother said, well, in the South, black people, white people can't eat at the lunch counter together. And I had a friend who was black. I guess I was in 3rd grade, I had Edith, and I was saying, so Edith and I could eat lunch? And she said, no. I said, let's join it. And, of course, the mother was already, she was a freedom rider and civil rights activist. And we joined. That was my first picket line.
Wow, that's huge. I don't get to hear a lot of people talk about that. I think about diversity, and even you talk about America as a country, like how, and it's almost, as an African-American woman, I think about the diversity of how America, it's almost like they forget. It's almost like it's forgotten, like they want to erase the history, of what actually happened. And it's kind of sad, but it's amazing to talk to someone that actually experienced it. Because even in the South here, it's like, oh, that happened and we just want to move forward. But it's like, some people are really, really hurting.
That's right.
And they're not addressing that issue.
Right.
That's why
that's right.
The fire keeps flaming up, and people keep acting crazy and stuff, or what people call crazy, but it's not crazy.
That's right.
It's because everybody, let's just throw some sand on it. Let's try to hide it,
I know.
it's amazing. And I want to ask you this as you're Jewish, like, so the
Yeah.
Holocaust was evil, you know?
Yeah, it was evil.
And it was like you have a family that's been experienced that. So as diversity in America, and you know, it's funny, I was like, am I going to ask this question in my summit? But I'm here, I'm
Go,
gonna ask
go
questions.
ahead and
So
ask anything.
so I want to ask
Anything.
you, like, and I don't know because I could be ignorant about it. That's why I want to ask. So I feel that was totally evil what happened. But it's like, now, can you compare the slavery that the African Americans experienced? Can you see that as a level would make sense to be as evil of what America did to the African Americans? Or
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. And in fact, I don't want to say anything is more evil, but if you look at the history of slavery and you look at what happened after slavery, people think that the Civil War ended and, oh, Black people were free. Yeah, 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 yeah. But it wasn't like that at all, because they still had the laws. They had laws that you couldn't be out on the street if you didn't have a job. But if you were Black, you weren't allowed, basically you weren't allowed to work. They weren't, they couldn't hire Black people. So if you have a Black person, especially a Black man on the street without a job, he's going to jail. And guess what? In jail, he's being made to work for free.
slavery.
So that is slave labor. And the other thing that happened was people think, oh yeah, then Black people could go anywhere they wanted. No, because what happened was they were still enslaved in the town. They were forced to work for some of the same people. And if you read the book, did you read Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson?
No, I'll write that down.
Everyone has to read that book.
Okay.
Black people need to read that book. White people, Asian, everybody needs to read that book.
Can you say it again? What is it?
Warmth of Other Suns.
Okay.
Warmth of Other Suns. Because then you really understand, if you're white or you're not, or you're just not Black, you understand a lot of the racism, and you understand the systemic racism. And if you're Black, people should read it, because a lot of Black people don't know the history. A lot of young Black people don't know it all. Just like any other group. And if you know who you are, if you have an identity, you feel better about yourself. But it talks about all of that. And then her next book that she wrote was Caste. And in Caste, she talks about the caste system. And she says, which I find really fascinating.
Who's the author again?
Isabel Wilkerson.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
And she talks about the fact that when the Germans were were starting the genocide against Jews, they came to the United States. They were studying racist governments. They studied South Africa. They studied all these different governments. They studied apartheid. But the one that they were most allied with was how Black people have been treated in this country, in the systemic way that they had been treated. So they came to the United States to study so that they could do the same thing to Jewish people. I mean, it's on a different level because slavery, was like hundreds of years. But they did things like, how like with Black people, they took away their names, they took away their identity.
Right.
So they did that in the concentration camps. They took away people's names and they were only known as a number,
Right.
And Black people weren't allowed to wear nice clothes. I mean, this is afterwards, even afterwards, if you were Black, and I mean, you probably know all this stuff, but a lot of people don't. If you were Black and you had on like nice clothes, it's like, oh no, you're not allowed to wear that. So there was like a dress code of that Black people had to adhere to. So when they put Jewish people in the concentration camps, they all had to wear like these black and white striped, whatever color they were, striped pajama things. And then in slavery, they looked at, well, how much food do people need in order to be able to keep working? Yeah. So that's what they got. And if you were a slave and you were caught stealing crumbs, you would be whipped, or you could even be killed. And so what the Germans did and what the Nazis did was they looked at how many calories Jewish people needed in order to work, like because they worked them to death. And then they would reduce it by about 300 so they wouldn't have the strength to fight back. So there were a lot of parallels. And when I was in school, and I don't they don't do this anymore. When I was in school, maybe because it was so soon after the Holocaust, we learned about the relationship between slavery and the Holocaust. We had to learn about all of that.
That was
And
from the Bronx,
you know,
right? You were from the Bronx?
yeah, yeah. And a lot of people don't remember that, but yeah, I mean, and the thing about slavery is, well, if you look at Germany, Germany did a denazification. I mean, there's still Nazis in Germany, but Germany's like one of the most democratic countries right now. And you have Jewish people going back to Germany, but the United States still has this, has never done like an unslavery thing. There's still like an ownership mentality. I mean, I'm going off on stuff. I don't know if this is what you wanted to put in
No,
this.
you know what? This is a discussion because this is diversity.
But
And a lot of this is the underlying reason why there's no alignment.
and if you look at what's been happening, like the whole thing about denying the vote, who's most impacted by that? It's mostly Black people who tend to vote Democrat. I'm not that it's not about politics, but it's
Right.
about who's being denied the right to vote. And then some senator or representative the other day said, well, there's two sides to slavery. Excuse me, and or people say, well, it was, just let it go. It was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't that long ago.
Right.
And people are traumatized. It's like, there's a lot of, even though a lot of people may deny it, but there's still genetically, like there's trauma from racism, there's trauma from slavery. Just like if your family was in the Holocaust, chances are you're going to have some serious issues because that trauma is in you, which is why now I can't remember her name. There's several people who talk about the post slavery trauma, and the fact that people's histories are different. Like if you're Black and from the United States, the traumas can be different than say if you're just coming over from like Nigeria,
Right.
or Ghana or somewhere like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I mean, I love what I do, and the more I think I know, the more I find out that I don't know.
Wow. Wow.
Did you see Judas and the Black Messiah yet?
No.
About Fred Hampton?
I've never seen that. I have to look it up.
You got to see it. You got to see it.
Okay.
I mean, because do you know who Fred Hampton was? I mean, this is so unrelated to business, but Fred Hampton was the leader of the Black Panther Party in Chicago,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
he was murdered.
Yeah, and I know that it was underlying reasons. A lot of times, and I look at that, there's so many deep rooted things that only the media will show, or that is visible to people that may not be the truth. Like, because I even look at,
That's right.
just we're in conversation, but Malcolm X,
Right.
I'm a Christian, and so I'm not a Muslim, but Malcolm X had some things that were right that he did. And I think because of the power that he was creating, what he was building so much of a audience, and people were agreeing, not just the Black people, but it was some white people agreeing.
Yeah.
So like, let's take him out. He needs to be
Right,
taken
exactly.
out.
And the thing is that, and after he went to Mecca, he became really inclusive, and things that a lot of the social justice movement started in the churches, and a lot of social justice movements that happening now are happening in the Black churches. There's a lot, I mean, even on Zoom, I mean, there's a lot going on. And that's where a lot of leadership has come from.
Yeah, leaders. I guess, and this conference, it's the Women Entrepreneurs Series. Women lead in business. Women lead in their families. We lead in our homes. We lead everywhere we go. So how can we be? How can we connect? How can we find alignment? Like I said, and the baseline is love, because love is going to, of course, it's going to tell and it's going to expose some stuff. Look, this is what it is. But yes, we know this is here. Now, how can we recover?
Right.
And still love, despite, because love also.
Well, we have to engage. We have to engage. We have to engage with each other. And when something like 70% of white people have like no interaction with people who are not like them.
Wow.
So if you don't think that having that interaction is important, then how are you going to help this country be successful? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's so important. And that's why it's so important to seek out people who are different. And for women, it's really important for women to seek out, if you're going to do like just, women, to seek out other women who are different. Because one of the problems a lot of times, like a lot of the women's movement, is that it's been very white. I mean, but the problem with that is that it hasn't included women of color who have gotten left out. So when you have like white women getting promoted, but then you have people of color who are being left out. One of my best friends, she passed away. She was one of the founding editors of Ms. Magazine, and she was Black, and she had started the Black, what was it? I think it was like the Black Women's Feminist Organization, MBFO or something like that. And she used to speak about that a lot. And so if we want to be inclusive of other women, we need to be inclusive and not just of women who look like us. And for a lot of people, if you don't have any experience with people who are different than you, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Right. I mean, it's okay to be uncomfortable because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And it's normal. It's normal to be uncomfortable, but you have to be willing to be uncomfortable because you have to look at what are the rewards? What are the rewards of going somewhere and being uncomfortable? And then you meet people, you meet one person at a time. And then that person introduces you to somebody else. And you don't know what kind of surprises you're going to have in the world. You just don't know. And you don't know what kind of love, is out there. I mean, I'm with you, I'm also like a person of faith, and that's me, just me. And, and I believe that love is out there and we are united by a higher power. I mean, that's my own personal belief, but awesome. I mean,
love. That's
yeah. And I tell you, I go to everybody's place of worship. I've been to so many different ones, I go to a lot of different ones, and I just feel, you just feel the love.
Love is the key. And I will say I had some friends from college, high school that were different beliefs than me. I'm not saying I would go to their place of worship, but I still love them. Like we talk every day. We agree, it's a lot of things that we do have in common. And some things I'll tell them, look, Jesus is Lord, that's me, but that's on me. So it's the key is that you be confident in you so that you can be confident in opening up to somebody else, And you know what? I'm just so grateful, Simma. Simma again means treasure, I found out.
Yeah. I wake up every day, that song, Just Another Day, right?
Yes.
I wake up every day, and I think about that every day when I wake up in the morning. Like, what am I grateful for?
Yes.
I hear you.
Amen.
I know who's going to take care of me, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to take care of you, right?
That's right.
Ultimately.
Well, Simma,
that's my belief. Yeah.
Tell me this. What's your next venture? What are you doing next?
Well, I have my podcast on race, and it's a cross-race conversation on race. It's called Everyday Conversations on Race for Everyday People. And if people want to listen to it, it's www.raceconvo.com, www.raceconvo, like conversation. And we have all kinds of conversations. Like the last one, and it's always cross-race. The last conversation we had was, I had Joel Brown, who's African-American, and Lee Manhua, who's Chinese-American. And we had a conversation about Black Asian unity, bringing Black and Asian people together. I had one that I had Alana Kaufman, who's Black and Jewish. She talked about racism within the Jewish community and then anti-Semitism outside the community. And we talked about that. I've had people on who are like really high level corporate executives who are Black. And they talked about what's it like to be executive vice president, you're working with the CEO, you've got power, you have prestige, you have influence. Everybody goes, oh, wow. But you go out on the street and you're just another Black man who could be a target.
Yeah.
And then we've done one, like we did Afro-Latinas across the generation. I had two friends, one who was Afro-Latina, who's like 30, and another one who is like 80. And then we talked about doing things about attacks against Asians. And then we did like racial disparities during COVID. Every time I'm always looking for good guests, and I'm always looking for another angle, because there's so much. I mean, there's just so much to talk about. Racism in education. I've done like, I can't believe I did 75 shows. And then I speak at a lot of conferences, and I facilitate dialogues. So I love to go places and facilitate dialogues, because thinking about facilitating dialogues is that it's just what you were talking about. When you come from love, you have to be able to allow people to speak and not be super judgmental, because you don't want to shut people down.
Right.
And so I'm really good at getting people to talk to each other, because like I said, I will talk to anybody. I will talk to anybody, because there's always something, there's always something to talk about, always a way of connecting with people and taking people to another level. If you want to take people to that, level of love.
Higher. Yeah. That's I'm telling the guests that are attending this show, I was telling them, I said, you ready to go to the next level? And that's what we're wanting them to do. So guys that are watching, this is for you, take it to the next level, bring some communication, communicate, anything else, Simma, open dialogue.
Yeah.
What else could they take out? Just take with you to be more confident, be confident in you,
Well, here's something that's really important, is to say hello to people who are different than you, especially in your organization. Because several years ago, when I do a lot of organizational assessments, and people were saying, oh, my manager, I don't feel included. My manager doesn't say hello to me. And I thought, what's up? And then I talked to more and more people, and I remember talking to a couple of managers, and they said, oh, we say hello to everybody. I said, oh, really? I want you to do a hello inventory. I want you to look at who you say hello to every day. And is it just the people that look like you? And they came back and said, oh man, you're right. Because oftentimes you don't see people who are different. They're invisible to you. You don't see them. So you need to start looking around. Everybody, you want to be a leader? Start looking around. Ask yourself, what have I been missing? Why haven't I seen this? And you need to start saying hello to people. You need to learn the names of 3 new people every day and get other people to talk to each other. And just hello is free. Saying hello is free. And then ask people in your organization, especially the ones that don't look like you, what do you do here? What can we do to help you be more effective in your job? And you will have amazing conversations, but people will also see you as a leader. You don't want to be the leader you don't want to be like just the men's leader. Don't be just the white people's leader. You just want to be like people over 40 leader or under 40. You want to be everybody's leader in your organization.
Absolutely. That's awesome. You sealed the deal. Oh, no.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow. So go to your podcast, check it out. The website again is.
Oh, my personal website is simmalieberman.com, SIMMALIEBERMAN.com. Hit me up on Twitter @TheInclusionist. My email is simma@simmalieberman.com. My LinkedIn is Simma Lieberman. My Instagram, simma.lieberman. They can bring me in to facilitate a panel, to be on the panel, to facilitate a conversation, or to just have a conversation with me. Awesome. And I'm willing to answer any question.
Thank you.
No stupid question. Every question is a question, and every question should be answered.
Thank you, Simma. Simma. Who got the
key? Down. That's right. My friends still call me that. Somebody called me that yesterday, actually.
It's funny, and it's funny how we think we have this resistance, because I was thinking like, I'm going to interview Simma. Should I say that? Should I not? But the truth is, you have to be you, and this is me, so I like the song, and you are awesome.
And simmer down. They go, simmer down.
Simmer down,
Yeah.
simmer up. No, bring it up. No.
But, I mean, and also you really don't know by looking at somebody who's in their family. You don't know what their background is. You don't know what their experiences are. You just, sometimes you could think you do,
Yeah, assume.
but yeah, you assume, but you don't really know. And, I'll tell you something. I have been, I've been to a lot of different churches, I've been to a lot of Black churches, I'm very comfortable. And I bring my friends to Jewish things. I bring all my friends to synagogue. I've been to mosques. My synagogue does we have activities with the local mosque and one of the Christian churches. I've been to Buddhist temples, and I love, because for me, it is about love and understanding. But I also love gospel though.
Well, hey, look, that's I love the gospel too. I love gospel music. You said
That's
you
what I
love
mean. I love
gospel
gospel music. I love
music.
gospel music. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. I love it too.
Yeah.
And I love you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited.